saying the Epstein files were going to be a nothing burger, and it appears we may have gotten that wrong. Where do you want to start, Sam?
Well, it turns out that I'm in them, which I
Mm,
was not
yeah,
anticipating. So we should talk about that.
we,
Um,
we don't need to
I,
start there. We can come back to that unless you want to start there.
yeah, well, I mean, I guess, well, we're going to make light of this because, it's kind of funny the way I'm in them. But I don't want there to be any confusion around, how I perceive the larger issue here. I mean, I'm not, obviously nothing I'm about to say is going to make light of what a monster Epstein was and how good it is that, uh, I mean, in my view, at least, that the files are coming out, and obviously, anyone who participated with his in his actual crimes deserves to be prosecuted and all of that. And I mean, I think we're probably going to differentiate the degrees of culpability that we perceive insofar as we've seen what has been released in this recent tranche. Um, because I think there's a fair amount of confusion around just how implicated people are. But yeah, obviously, the man himself was awful, and he did awful things, and there are people who enabled those things who or participated in the abuse and trafficking of young girls, and it's just we want nothing but justice for those people, etc. Um,
Right. I don't know what Sam Harris is going to say in the rest of this video, but I agree obviously on that point, and everyone should agree on that point. It's a very obvious point. If you did anything evil like that, you should be prosecuted, thrown in jail, potentially maybe worse, because that's inexcusable and evil. And so let's just start there with that. And then we'll move. We'll see what else he has to say about that, and maybe I'll agree, maybe I'll disagree, but that's the whole point.
and I also don't mean to make light of the people who are like me in these files in a way that is peripheral to one or another degree, and it may be properly fucking up their lives and reputations because people are not disposed to differentiate the degrees of culpability, et cetera. So, I'm sure I know many people who are mentioned in these files because now I see how this is, how the network is kind of strung together based on these email chains, and some of them might really be sweating it out for no real reason except they have institutions that may want to fire them as a result of some weird implication that may be meaningless, etc. So I don't mean to make light of any of that, but I'm going to make light of my own situation because I got a big laugh out of it last night. So I do think it's a little too soon to vindicate the proper conspiracy theorists, the Pizzagators, the QAnon lunatics, who really are lunatics. I mean, when you look at the rest of what they have claimed is true, I mean, even if the worst allegations about Epstein or the worst assumptions about Epstein and his network are true, this does not redeem Pizzagate or QAnon. I mean, those people are just mad. I think we should be slow to imagine that there are a ton of guys out there who want to have sex with 13-year-olds, right? I mean, like that's hard. From what I've seen, I mean, and I don't even imagine that of President Trump as much as I'm capable of imagining the worst about him. I mean, I think he is just a genuinely awful person and a psychopath. Um, I don't, I would be surprised. Again, I think there are yet 3 million more documents that have not been released, and presumably those are being held back for some reason, some strategic reason on the administration's part. So. Um, Perhaps there's worse to come for Trump, but I would find it difficult to believe or to assume that he's the sort of guy that if you put him on an island and handed him a 13, 14-year-old girl, that's the kind of situation he wants to be in sexually. I mean, I don't think that. I think it's a pretty rare person who shared Epstein's proclivities, right? So my assumption about all of this is still you have a bunch of guys who are eager and to cheat on their wives or to sleep with young beautiful women who they don't necessarily want to be seen with in public, but these young, beautiful women are not underage for the most part, right? So you have these, I mean, and we can be very judgmental about all this behavior, sure, but I just think it's it still strikes me as extraordinarily unlikely that there are many people who are guilty the way Epstein was of, targeting underage girls, knowingly targeting underage girls. I just think that would be a surprise, and obviously awful, and because how it's so awful, it is worth investigating to the last line of these emails, um, and by all means find all these people.
It absolutely 100% has to be investigated. I saw something on X that says, well, if we investigate all of them, then the whole system crumbles. Well, then good. Fucking let the whole system crumble if this is what the system produces. Then rebuild from wherever we can start off a moral, more moral and ethical place. If this crashes the whole system, fucking great. It was a bad system to begin with. Let's rebuild using the lessons we learned with a more moral and ethical, driving force. I mean, and it's also like, Sam Harris is making some logical points, right? Not coming to sort of total conclusions or assuming everything, right? And like then Tucker Carlson already has Ian Carroll on his show, like claiming that, all of these things that are true and Pizzagate and all whatever the stuff that Sam Harris just mentioned. And then, Tucker Carlson brings on Ian Carroll, who's a known fucking idiot and a known conspiracy theorist to basically talk. He talks with confidence, very similar to Candace Owens, and they just tell half truths and lies and bullshit. But again, said with so much confidence and conviction, with all the sort of mess that's going on in the world, it's easy for people to buy in and to believe that. But that's where sort of the misinformation, disinformation, discernment type of thing comes into play. And it causes a ton of confusion for people. But if this crumbles the whole system where we have to actually prosecute the people who did these horrible things, then fuck it. So be it. That's how it needs to be. Here we go.
But
Back at it.
I will be surprised if we find a lot of those people. What will not surprise me is to discover that people like, Donald Trump and Bill Gates and all the other people who are named are happy to find themselves on airplanes or islands or anywhere else with 20-year-old Russian models who are eager to sleep with them because they're basically functioning like prostitutes and these guys are pigs. Um, that would not surprise me. So, and that's what that's what I'm certainly expecting we're going to find evidence of, and that in many cases that's probably embarrassing enough, especially given that many of these guys had relationships with Epstein that were deep enough and long enough such that you can't believe they didn't know what he was into. And I don't believe that Trump was ignorant of Epstein's actual appetites and behavior because I mean because he we have it from his own mouth where he said some say he loves beautiful women as much as I do and his are on the young side or something like what the only thing that could mean is that Trump was aware of because he had Trump's conquests were surely young enough so that when he's talking about the young side, he's talking about what Epstein was actually into. So I think Trump probably be hung based on the extent of
His
his friendship
awareness.
with
Yeah.
Epstein, and I'm sure I trust that could all be forthcoming. But again, I would be surprised if Trump is the sort of guy who wants to sleep with a 13-year-old. That would surprise me.
Right. I think you're right. The awareness factor when people knew and what they knew will come into play, and we'll have to figure that out. I think that's. But
Yeah.
there is a difference between what Epstein was doing and piggish behavior.
Yeah, I mean, that distinction has to be made, right? The distinction has to be made that who was aware of the behavior and who turned a blind eye to it, who was sleeping with underage women, legit and pedophilic, yeah, or pedophile type behavior, which is disgusting and should not be overlooked whatsoever. That's fucking evil and disgusting. But also, that's much different, like Sam is saying, than grown men sleeping with 20-year-old women who are basically being treated as prostitutes. It's also gross and wrong and not good. And also there should be repercussions for that behavior. But those two things are extremely, extremely different and not the same. And again, we have to place those in two different buckets when looking at all the information that's being released from the Epstein files. And I think Sam is making a good point about that. I'm just reiterating it and basically like, yeah, I'm
A
agreeing.
huge difference. I mean, again, it's not to say that the piggish behavior isn't going to be enough to destroy some reputations because you have guys who are cheating on their wives, etc. And also it
But
has to
that's
be
not what
real.
this is all about. I mean, that's not,
No, no, no,
you know,
not. But no. But the thing that it's about, in addition to Epstein's crimes and anyone else who's participating at that level, what it's about is a network of very rich, very connected, in many cases, very smart people who, many of whom you have to assume knew about his crimes and tolerated that awareness, tolerated an enduring association with him, under the shadow of that knowledge, and that seems like a kind of culpability that a lot of people are getting
you don't think it's
hammered for now.
possible that he had two operations going, one that was more
That's
secretive
what
for
I mean. I
himself?
did
Yeah.
at the beginning. I suggested that, but I just think that I think a lot of people knew they knew about his earlier conviction. They certainly
Mhm.
knew when the big story broke in 2018, and they maintained a friendship with him. Um, they hung out with him enough to know that he was into 14-year-olds or whatever he was into. I mean, so
You really think they knew that, or was some sort of rumor around there and they hadn't seen it and they just kind of looked the other way because there was convenience there and,
I just think again, I do not consider myself especially well informed about. I mean, again, I've not gone down this rabbit hole to know just how many allegations there are and what they're like, and just how plausible it is that it could all have been hidden. I mean, you're talking about people who, in many cases, who went to his island, who went to his ranch in New Mexico, who went to his house many times, who were on his plane. If you're imagining that he kept two sets of books sexually so carefully that he just he always knew to be with a girl 18 or above in the presence of normies, and then let his pedophile freak flag fly in the presence of other freaks, uh, and he kept all that straight. That seems a little far fetched to me. I'm sure, again, I think Trump's statement about he likes him on the young side
right.
is absolutely damning, right?
Right.
I
But
mean,
just because Trump knew doesn't mean, someone like Bill Gates knew. I mean, I think
right?
it's entirely possible
Again,
that
totally
people are
possible.
on these trips and they didn't see anything. And I mean, just the
Yeah, of course, there's probably different groups of people that are named in the Epstein files who were witness to different things. But there has to be sort of a group of people that knew what Epstein was doing and the behavior that he was conducting. And I'm sure there's another side of it who knew really nothing, who is not really culpable in that sort of crime and atrocity that Epstein was doing. But there are certain people who knew that, and they should be held to account just as much as anyone else. And yeah, again, distinction has to be made there because for virtually anyone that was named in these files, it could be, very, harming to their reputation if they did not do anything and didn't partake in anything that was like this. I know Brian Johnson said something on X about it, and Sam Harris was mentioned in there. It's like, okay, well, what about these guys? Does that have like, they're not in the same bucket, obviously, as some of these other people who are doing the reprehensible behavior, and also maybe who knew about all of Epstein's behaviors to begin with and never said anything because of the money or the fame or the status or the resources or whatever the reason was. That has to be found out and brought to light,
explanation
I
to me
think.
makes more sense that someone like a Bill Gates just maybe heard rumors or it makes sense that he'd be willing to look the other way and just shrug it off to some rumor. I don't think he would have seen it or witnessed it. I just have a hard time believing that he would continue to
Yeah, no,
put himself in this guy's presence if he saw that, if he
I
really
I
knew.
I have a hard time believing that in many cases. I don't have a hard time believing that in Trump's case, given what a pig he is. But uh, yeah, and this is so. I mean, like perhaps just jump to my case now, which I've spoken about on the podcast before, which is I met this man exactly once, as far as I know. It's totally possible I was at some kind of party or dinner party, at a TED conference, very likely, where he was also in the room. But the only time I'm aware of having met him was at a lunch at TED that had maybe 12 people at it. And I described the immediate impression I got, which was that he was a colossal douchebag because he had a very attractive young Asian woman on his knee, kind of bouncing along on his knee. The whole during the whole lunch, um, and it was pretty clear they weren't newlyweds or newly engaged or people who just who were going to spend the rest of their lives together and just couldn't be apart for 10 seconds. I guess there's some perhaps romantic version of this that's not invidious. But the scene I saw was of a guy who was with a woman who was at least 30 years younger than him. Again, zero implication that she was underage. I mean, she seemed like she was probably in her early 20s, but just very young for him. And also, the way he was relating to her. He was as a kind of accessory. Um, it was just a weird sugar daddy vibe where he thought he was coming off like Cary Grant, and he was coming off like a total sleazebag. So that was the impression I formed of him, and as far as I knew, that was my only interaction with him ever. And now we discover that he had sent me an email inviting me. I mean, do you want to take it now? Do you want to read that email?
Yeah, let's start with this. So this is what was discovered.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift.
Nope. See you,
Epstein to you,
Ryan.
Sam. We met with John Brockman at the TED event. I thought you might enjoy a dinner with Woody Allen, Chomsky, and me. It should be fun. What do you write?
Right.
By the way, this is May of
Right.
2015. What do you write back? Oh my God, you could have been killed for this. You said, only if we film it, smiley face.
Yeah.
Oh my God, how bad this could have been.
Oh my
Only
God.
if we film it. Meanwhile,
Oh,
this
that's
guy's
brutal.
head must have been like, how does he know? Does he want
Yeah.
in on the cabal? So he
That's
writes
brutal.
back, are you ever in New York? You write back, no plans at the moment. I guess then maybe the final one, which this really, I mean, you could have been in trouble had he not exonerated you with this. He said, I just finished reading your Chomsky email exchange in arts, I guess, letters. I now understand your film it comment. I spent quite a lot of time. I mean, do you want me to read the whole thing? But
I mean, you can. I mean, this is so. Perhaps before you do, I should just say that this is a humbling encounter with the vagaries of memory for me because I literally have no memory of this exchange. One would think I would remember. Well, first, let me just say that in my understanding at this point, Epstein was just this billionaire who gave a lot of money to scientists and he funded a lot of scientific research. I mean, that was my understanding of who he was. I believe that's all I knew about him until I had lunch with him and just got a vibe that he was a douchebag. Um, Again, that's all I knew about him. And
which makes it plausible to believe that others didn't know that about him
right,
at the
exactly.
time.
So he it's totally understandable to me that there are scientists by the dozen who would have wanted proximity to him on the chance that their projects could get funded, etc. So it's no surprise at all that he had these kind of vast reach within the scientific community because that seemed to be what he was into among other things. But so when I got this email, I certainly would think I would remember this billionaire inviting me to a dinner with Woody Allen and Noam Chomsky. So again, zero memory of that. When I read my response, I immediately understood what I must have meant, which is, okay, you're inviting me to a dinner with Chomsky. The only way I'm walking into that room is if the cameras are rolling because I forget when I had it, but I had an email war with Chomsky. Chomsky is another person who he's considered a saint on the far left. He strikes me as a truly awful human being, um, just pathological in many ways. But leave that aside. So I had to know, I had to believe that the only thing I could have meant there was, dude, you're inviting me to dinner with Chomsky. Don't you realize what went down there? Um,
But I just want to
and
clarify when you're saying that the furthest you would think he would be complicit would be perhaps in the pig category at best.
oh,
Not
I'm not even referring to. I
right.
mean, I
I
know
just
he's
want to.
wrapped up in
Yeah.
these in these emails, and I think he was sending friendly emails to Epstein, even like up to the last month of his life or something. I mean, like he was somebody who was relating to him happily until the end, certainly into 2019. But but I'm not even imputing anything on that score. I just think Chomsky, as far as I can tell, is just a terrible person. Um, he's just he's uh, anyway. But we don't have to do a postmortem on that. I discovered a lot in the aftermath of my brief email entanglement with him, thinking he was sort of a normal academic who could be dealt with normally. Um, he's just got some very weird issues.
So that explains the filament thing. You thought you're going to have a collision if we were going to.
Yeah, so I just thought
see
you're going
him.
to put me in a room with Chomsky. That this is going to be great and also just crazy. But the thing is, I have no memory of this invitation. There's no evidence that I ever took it seriously. I just said only if we film it, and then I never responded to him again. And then when he responded to that line. Well, you're about to read that, but then it seems I never responded to his response. So I just
Yeah.
was
Well,
not
I don't know that
interested
there. I
at all.
mean, people can read it. I don't know that I need to read the whole thing, but he just basically spent. I spent quite a lot of time with him recently. Odd, but he is warm and funny. In fact, very in both categories. I would suggest that as some age, the energy required to keep separate their views and their person is required elsewhere in the body. So debate a virtually ad hominem. I'm sorry, debate is virtually ad hominem, like it or not, more
Yeah.
charm. Unless this guy's, by the way, these emails are not easy to read. There's punctuation all over the place, and it's not written. And less argument. I respectfully suggest we will get you your desired engagement. So he's saying more charm and less argument.
Right.
He
Yeah. So I mean,
suggested- he's giving you, he's coaching you.
So I never responded to that.
Man, come on, Sam. Give us the full thing, Sam. Come on. We want to see the full thing, Sam. How are we supposed to know exactly what you think? Anyways, that was cool. Appreciate that. But like, what Sam is saying is obviously essentially correct. It's like there has to be a distinction about who's in the Epstein files, who knew what, who should be held accountable, who did the evil shit, who knew about Epstein. All of these things need to be answered. And I don't know if they will be, and that's an issue. Because I don't know if the right people with the right moral and ethical values are going to take the deep dive into the Epstein files that are needed to uncover the actual truth about the whole thing so that conspiracy theorists and other people and people implicated and all these people can stop having so many different opinions about this thing. We can all sort of come to the conclusion based on the right evidence. But it's the age of the internet. So even if that does come out and be true, and there's like a really diligent and like sturdy and moral deep dive into the Epstein files, and we come out with like these are the facts of the matter. These people are on this side. These people are on this side. These are just email chains. This person is implicated. Yada 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 yada. Kind of like Sam Harris's situation or Brian Johnson's situation or Peter Attia's situation. I don't know much about Peter Attia's situation, but he seemed to be all over X recently. I don't know how he's implicated in all of this, but if we finally get some answers, will everyone be on the same page about it? Or will there be different sides spewing different arguments still with the conspiracy theories about this and that? And will we ever sort of get to an agreement about these are the horrible people that did horrible shit and need to go to prison? And these people were just kind of part of the sphere and didn't know, or like, Sam Harris used the word pig a lot and that kind of behavior, or was that their case? Or, I think that's important because obviously reputations and careers can be absolutely killed from something like this. But is it legit? Right? It's like the same when Trevor Bauer is an example. Like this is not the same, right? Obviously, Trevor Bauer gets accused of sexual assault and sexual misconduct. He ends up winning the case, and it goes away. And the woman ended up saying that she was lying about the whole thing. He's still never allowed back in Major League Baseball because of that behavior. Now, is that right? Is it wrong? Who knows? Has he had? There's rumors also that Trevor Bauer's had some other sexual misconduct issues outside of that, except for that one woman. That's why she thought potentially she could get away with it and steal some money. And that's another situation for another time. But my point being is that his whole reputation is essentially ruined inside Major League Baseball because of that one accusation. Now he's built himself outside of it, and he still seems like he's doing well and enjoying baseball and playing. So that's awesome. But like something like this can absolutely ruin your reputation, your career, and your stance if the allegations are even just made and they're not true, they're unfounded, there's no realness to them, they're just made, they still could have an impact on your life and your career. And that's also what Sam Harris was alluding to in that conversation or that video. So I think what's most important is trying to get to the bottom of this in the most real and authentic and moral way, to know who we have to hold accountable and who the fuck should go to prison. And then again, like I said before, if this crashes the whole system down, fuck it, crash the whole system down, rebuild from anew, because if this is the system that we have, the system fucking sucks and it exploits people and it uses people and it's predatory and all that stuff. If that's all true, fuck it, break the whole system down, build anew. That's what we got to do. So that's kind of what I think about that. It's sort of the first video I've done on anything related to the Epstein files, because I haven't, kind of like Sam Harris, I haven't taken a super, super, super deep dive into it because it's not something that I'm like incredibly interested in, but I am interested in like the flourishing of our society. And if the flourishing of our society has a lot to do with this stuff not happening anymore and people not getting exploited in this type of way, whether that be sexually or financially or whatever the case may be, that is a huge sort of impediment to our flourishing society, and the well-being of everyone that lives in our society. So that's why I care about it. But